Final Fantasy XIV, a story-based MMORPG with enough non-story content that many enjoy it for just some parts of its massive offering. Endwalker launched in the closing weeks of 2021 and marks a unique opportunity for this game. A story that began in a failed MMORPG and gave way to a realm reborn charted us on a narrative arc that has come to a close as of the expansion release. Endwalker was patch 6.0, and its first content patch of 6.1 will embark our adventuring players, the Warriors of Light, on a new journey. Many that ask, is Final Fantasy XIV worth playing, come from a handful of points of view outside of the existing community who can usually answer this for themselves and do each and every time they renew their monthly sub or hit login. The first is someone who has never heard of Final Fantasy XIV, possibly never played an MMORPG of any kind, and for them, I think there are two burning questions. What is Final Fantasy XIV, and am I too late? Final Fantasy XIV is indeed a massively online multiplayer game with player interaction for running group content from groups as small as 4 and as many as the server can hold in world battles, and offers similar content to games like World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, Old School RuneScape, Star Wars Old Republic, and so on. It, however, at the same time is a Final Fantasy game, a story-based adventure of overcoming challenges, growing your strength as a player, and a character similar to other Final Fantasies, as well as games like Zelda, God of War, Assassin's Creed, The Witcher, and so on, but these two sides cannot be separated. Some believe the MMO is the dominant part of an MMORPG, such as this. Due to the vast majority of a player's total time played, it will likely be at max level content, interacting with other players, markets, etc., and some may even skip all of the story to get to that. They would be correct in that you literally cannot clear massive amounts of solo content without spending at least some time interacting with other players. But you could focus on just the MMO aspects and never care for the solo experience and be quite fond of Final Fantasy XIV. Many longtime veterans are. That being said, this would be missing a huge opportunity to look at the diversity of players that this game appeals to by ignoring the more intimate, individual aspects of Final Fantasy XIV that set it apart from many of the similar games. The story, its delivery, everything that surrounds it, such as the world we're in, the music we hear, and the content I just described that appeals to MMO players, all exists to facilitate the solo experience. To point out the devout passion that can even be as aggressive as a distant relative hugging you that leaves you unable to breathe, the solo experience of this game is inspiring. Much, but not enough voice acting, brilliant writing that can remain true to itself for years across multiple writers without straying, characters that you can feel for, regular updates, all mean that solo players have literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours of content to enjoy, but much of that will be based around story. To say this game is not single player at all would set up a really disappointing entrance for a new player that wants to enjoy the story they hear is so good, and then only realize they're going to be mostly alone for hundreds of hours before being caught up, only occasionally briefly needing other players to clear a piece of battle content interspersed into that story. It is both an MMO and an RPG, with content as wide as breeding chocobos to epic boss battles, and people still strive years to beat some of those after they're introduced. This game is massive. PvP is probably its weakest offering among other games in the genre, but they are putting effort into improving that across Endwalker, which is a constant reminder that regular and large updates make this a game that is enjoyable by MMO players of all kinds. So the other question is, are you too late? Simply put, no. The producer and director Yoshi P gave us the warning in advance that Endwalker would be the finale of the story, not because he wanted to lock new players away, but because he wanted to invite them into a story that is complete and ready to have you. Much like discovering a TV show after its new episodes are no longer being made, you will know that you can binge the existing content and never hit a cliffhanger that needs to last any longer than until the next time you log in. so popular that early into Endwalker, sales and starts of new accounts have been restricted. This is perhaps not only not a bad time, but instead is the best time to join this game in its storied history. As of this recording, new service accounts are restricted, but after years of being in this community, I trust these devs to overcome that, as they have in the past overcome every technical hurdle. Games like this are not something that people like me and many others are so loyal to because they are a perfectly smooth ride. This one is instead because every single time we've hit a rough patch, the devs have been gracious, compassionate, transparent, and willing to fix at any cost, and I believe this is more true now than ever before. This game has a massive free trial, and I encourage you to try whenever you are able. The other group that asks this question, is it worth to play in whatever the current year is, are past players who have taken a break and wonder if now is the time they should return. Perhaps they took that break to play other games that they now want to enjoy alongside. Perhaps they're ready to put those games down and do need a game to pick up. Perhaps it's because life got too busy, or they just hit a point they needed a break, something that Yoshi P does encourage. We are happy to have you around, even if you are not currently playing. With Endwalker being the finale to wherever you left off, finishing the story or catching up on all of the content you have missed, such as raiding, the new PvP expected in 6.1, exploring new zones, returning to an MMO has much to offer, even if it had not just released what I feel is its best expansion beginning so far, and a bold choice to end a story without ending a game that I do believe they landed brilliantly. Returning players know what they like. They know why they quit. But what I can say is, in my opinion, there is not a single type of content in this game that is not in its best state so far. Maybe you liked a previous state of a class or a particular raid encounter, and I cannot promise that the current set of every single job, the current set of raid encounters at whenever you decide to come back will beat whatever that expectation set for you. But the overall state of content of where Endwalker is and where it looks to be headed has me convinced that this game is always worth trying to return to at least catch up on everything that you like and have missed, and you can always take another break. Many in the community do come and go, and we always welcome them upon their return. While other games such as Guild Wars have exciting new content coming in 2022, and there will likely always be a new exciting MMO on the horizon, Final Fantasy XIV is in a position to be considered one of the best MMOs looking back at 2021, and is looking to be incredibly strong throughout 2022 and beyond. Time per dollar MMOs are a wonderful form of entertainment, and to be in a community supported by a set of devs that can be a true joy to interact and be around, I cannot see why Final Fantasy XIV is not worth it in 2022. This reads as a love letter from an existing player because it is. It reads as a bit of a sales pitch because I regularly and happily recommend this game to friends and family, and it is. A post that I hope I can similarly make in years ahead. 2022 is indeed a wonderful time to be a gamer, but more specifically, a Final Fantasy player.